Hello there, my name is John O'Brien, and I'll be delivering to you the information that you're about to receive in this presentation. The topic that will be addressed is how to implement a coaching strategy aimed at increasing intrinsic motivation in youth sports participants. Intrinsic motivation means to be motivated by internal sources, such as personal rewards or participating because the person enjoys the activity itself and is not doing it to gain external rewards. The other type of motivation, which is heavily linked to intrinsic, is extrinsic motivation. Extrinsic motivation means to complete activities with the motivation of external rewards, like a pay rise at work, or receiving compliments for their performance at a sport, or even trying to complete an activity better than a colleague or friend. It has been found that intrinsic motivation is better in most situations, although extrinsic can be useful in certain situations. That is why for this presentation, we will be going in depth into how to develop a strategy to increase intrinsic motivation for youth sports participants. The three techniques that will make up the strategy are task orientation, a judging system, and gamification. Three techniques will be used because everyone is different and what works for some people might not work for others. The first we will look at is task orientation. An important aspect of intrinsic motivation is the role of the people that are involved with the person's participation in sport and whether they are task-orientated or ego-orientated. In a study by Hager, which looked at intrinsic motivation in young athletes, they stated social agents linked directly to intrinsic motivation levels. Social agents are people involved with the activity, such as coaches or other players who participate in the sport. The social agents are usually either task-orientated or ego-orientated. Task-orientated means to emphasize improvement, effort, and the learning process, whereas ego-orientated means to focus on winning, competition, and comparing yourself to your peers. It's been found that athletes who observe their social agents' motivation as task-orientated are more likely to be intrinsically motivated themselves. In addition, it was perceived that the task-orientated people were more likely to be self-aware and their motivation is less likely to be weakened by fear of failure. The more time that is spent with the coaches and the teammates improving skills and effort levels around the task, the stronger the motivational foundation becomes for the players. When the overall group was predominantly task-oriented, it was assumed that the players were more likely to derive fulfillment from their own personal progress. Which all makes sense because if the social agents were ego-oriented and everyone was constantly competing against each other and had a win-all-cost mentality, which can initially create a competitive atmosphere, but eventually has a high risk of turning into a very negative and toxic atmosphere, which would lead to participation declining. Hence, it is very important for coaches to try and focus on players being task-oriented, so they'll be more intrinsically motivated. Another technique that can be implemented to increase intrinsic motivation, in addition to being task-oriented, is judgment. Now, not judgment how you're thinking right now as in complaining, but an actual judging system. Thomas writes about how judging on 4 characteristics of the task can increase intrinsic motivation. These are the meaningfulness of the task, the degree of choice available in selecting activities, how competently he or she is performing those activities, and the amount of progress. The article was written in regards to work employees, but the concept could be translated to youth sports coaching easily. Instead of asking the players to review and judge what they are doing for training, the coach could pretty much spell it out for them. So for meaningfulness, the coach at the start of training could talk about how the drills they're going to do will help them become better footballers. For competency, the coach could try and give as much positive feedback to the players when they complete the activity correctly. So it is pretty much the same concept, just adjusted for younger players, but they can still judge what they're doing, but hopefully in a positive way. Thomas talks about if people are judging what they're doing in this manner and are being positive in their judgments, they can become very excited and satisfied with what they are participating in, which increases their intrinsic motivation and engagement. It will be very suitable for youth sports participants as younger people can lose concentration and focus when they are doing something they do not feel is important or interesting enough. Through showing the players those 4 questions and them hopefully judging the training session in a positive way, this could help them engage and realize what they're doing is meaningful and can be enjoyable. Intrinsic motivation is, among many things, the motivation to improve oneself. So if the young athlete can judge their activity positively and see see that it can help them improve in their sport, it would definitely increase their intrinsic motivation. The third and final method to increase intrinsic motivation among youth sporting participants is using gamification. According to Haynes and Fox, gamification is the application of game elements to a non-game setting, which has continued to grow in workplaces and classrooms in recent years. What makes gamification effective at increasing intrinsic motivation is that through the enjoyment and excitableness of playing a game, people become more interested and invested in what they're doing. The study also found that children who are intrinsically motivated learn better, are happier, and are more engaged in the activity compared to being extrinsically motivated. A coach could utilize this by trying to incorporate as many games into training sessions as possible, although maintain focus on improvement of the skill level of participants. While gamification can be a great way to increase intrinsic motivation, the coach still needs to be cautious about how they structure the games, because if the games become too much about winning or receiving an award of some sort, the participants can start to become extrinsically motivated, which is not ideal for youth sport. If the games are structured to be fun and have a positive interpersonal outcomes, gamification is a great way to increase intrinsic motivation. It is only when it becomes too focused on beating someone else that it becomes harmful. The three techniques addressed previously are what make up an ideal strategy for coaches to use to increase intrinsic motivation among youth sports participants. All three, used in coordination with each other, can connect with all different types of players, as what works for some may not work for others. Probably the most important aspect is that the coach is open-minded and willing to try new things, but we're assuming they are for this. So in regards to how a coach can implement this strategy, they first need to make the learning environment task-orientated by getting across to the kids that training and the games are about improving their skills and enjoying what they're doing, as opposed to doing them to win or receive other rewards. By doing this, it will ease the pressure of winning and just let the kids be kids. Once that has been made clear to the players, and the coach can then use a judging system to show players that what they are doing is of value. This involves the coach explaining that the training or game has meaning, that they are performing well, and that they are progressing with their either skill or effort. This will enable players to judge what they are doing as worthwhile and in turn increase their intrinsic motivation. Then the final part of the strategy is the use of gamification at training, which is just trying to apply as many games to ordinary situations as part of training to make it more exciting and enjoyable. In summary, the three techniques that make up the ideal strategy for increasing intrinsic motivation in youth sports participants are having a task-oriented environment, implementing a 4-type judging system, and the use of gamification wherever possible. If coaches employ the three techniques that make up the overall strategy that have been discussed previously, it will definitely increase youth participants' intrinsic motivation. Everyone is different, and therefore this strategy is effective. Thank you. Bye for now. John O'Brien, S027436 9.